points of access. This one still applies.
Today we're going to cover accessibility remediation tips for PowerPoint presentations. This lesson will cover the accessibility checker, how to add graphics and charts that are accessible, adding notes, color contrast, fonts and readability, tables, and finally multimedia. When you open up your PowerPoint that you want to remediate, what you want to do to find the accessibility checker is to go to Review ribbon and then click Check Accessibility. You'll find that you'll get errors, warnings, tips, and intelligent services. Now what this means is an AI has looked at some alternative text for some images in this file. To look at it in more depth, what you want to do is drop one of these down. So here it says missing alternative text for a rectangle, this rectangle, and we're going to talk about that more in depth. The fix here is listed under steps to fix, and so this is the reason that alternative text for shapes can describe the shape. Adding alt tags to graphics and charts will help your users be able to understand them. When you're going through using the accessibility checker, you'll notice that the first thing it's showing here is the alternative text is missing from a bunch of items, and you'll see here I have this rectangle, and this basically is just covering up a yellow rectangle. And so there's a couple ways to go about fixing these. The first one is to come over and click Mark as Decorative, and I would have to do that for the green, the purple, and the blue. Another thing that we can do is we can use the slide master and make edits, and in this case this is the slide master for that particular slide, and so you'll see that I have this content here, and right now it has no background. This particular bit of text over the yellow background, it doesn't have any color, so if I move it over here it's going to be really hard to see. So I'm just going to have to change this so I can see it for the meantime, and then I'm going to move it over here. And so I can't actually delete from the template the yellow color, but I can cover it up. So I'm going to go to Insert, and then I'm going to go to Shape and give myself a box, and then I can cover that box up like this, and of course it comes out yellow, and I don't want any outline, so I'm going to put no outline, and then I want the shape color to be red like that. Now the problem is when I put this back over top of it, you see it's actually one layer down. So what I have to do is I have to right click on this and then bring to front, and then I can put it on here and then make the font back to white. And so now in the slide master I have changed that slide, and if you want to have multiple, you can right click and then duplicate the layout, and then you can take the color and change it to one of your other colors. And then do that again. Click on the color, and we're going to change the color of this. Oh, let's see, I have a purple, and then one more time, and then make this one blue. I gotta use that blue. There we go. Okay, so when you finish, you want to go back to your view and click on normal. So these 4 slides here were all done incorrectly, as I mentioned. And to redo them properly, I would have to go and insert a new slide. So I'm going to come up here to new slide. And you notice that I have this little drop down here. And now I can insert this new slide title and content, the red one. But then I would have to, I need to drag this up underneath it here. And so I would have to type this over again. And so that's a little bit of extra time involved. And I didn't get the red color exactly the same, but that's okay. It's going to be fine. And over here, if I wanted to add the text, I could basically just copy this like this. And so when I copy that over, it's going to just paste it in as it was. And I would have to redo all these slides. So that's a lot of work, and it's a lot simpler just to take your little image and mark each one here as a decorative. And so you would have to do that for all of them. Yeah, I think I got them all now, except for the beginning one, which I would just actually delete this slide. Right click and delete slide. And so as I go through these, oh, I missed one. The green one is not done, so I have to do that. As I go through this, you see the accessibility checker still running, and it just takes me to the next bit. And all these don't have alt tags, and so I'd have to add alt tags to all that. Another thing that you might want to know about is, how you actually insert a chart in here. Basically, I would have to go and make a new slide. Here we go. We'll just use this one. Okay, and so the title would be chart. And now there's another issue we'll talk about later, which is about color contrast. And right now we're just talking about how to fix the charts and graphs so that they're accessible. And that leads me into the next slide, which is about adding notes. So if I'm going to insert some kind of chart, you see that I have a selection here on the insert ribbon called chart, and then I can pick the kind of chart I want. It doesn't really matter in this demonstration. Now it's going to give me some data in here, and this is okay. I have a whole video, and I'll leave the link above so that you can actually learn more about how to build these charts. But what I'm supposed to show you right now is that you can also mark them as decorative, and you can also add alt tags. Now that doesn't always work very well, especially if the chart is complex. Another way to handle alt tags for complex images is to put information into the notes. Down here at the bottom below the chart, you'll see the word notes, and you click on that and you can add notes here. I'm going to go to the slide sorter view and go to another slide where notes would be appropriate for an image. So I double click on the slide and it pops up. Now this image is actually way too much information to have on any slide. You might have a slide with this information on it, with this being the title, and this being another slide title, and then this information below. But this is way too much information. Again, if I right click on it, I can go and edit the alt text, and then you'll see that I already have a description for it here, and that may be suitable, and that's fine, but this is certainly not going to be enough information for someone reading the slide deck to understand it. So what I would have to do is I would have to type the information, and again, I would cover on each slide one section. So here I would just paste in what I've already typed, which is the beginning material there. And of course I would have to add more, but the more you add to it, the more complex the slide is. And so hopefully when you're doing the presentation, you'll be able to orally address that, but also whatever you orally address, you want to put into text for two reasons. One, for someone who's deaf, and also for someone who's blind, so that they're able to go back to the slide presentation and understand what's going on. And that's why you can use notes as an alternative for the alt text. So in this case, instead of typing this in, I might just mark it as decorative. Another issue that the checker caught was the color contrast of the same slide. So let's take a look at it. You'll see here that on our accessibility checker, it says hard to read text contrast, and you'll see the steps to fixing it are to change the fill color or the text color. So in this case, what we have here is a kind of pale peach color and then red letters on top. And so what we would probably want to do is either change the color of the red and making it really dark like this, and coming down to the blue here and doing a change of the blue to make it dark. And so it should pass the test now. I do have on my computer an accessibility contrast checker, but if you want to see that, you can watch some of my other videos, which goes into great detail about how to make contrast work in PowerPoint. The other way to change it is to click on the box here and then right click, format shape, and change the color of the background. So what we could do is we could turn it into something like a white background, and that would completely obliterate the problem of the color contrast. Fonts and readability are a complex issue that you may not think a lot about when you're building your slide presentations. The first issue that we're going to deal with is just plain and simple fonts, and so you want to make sure your titles are at least 24 point. This title happens to be 32. It's also a sans serif font. What that means is it doesn't have the little curlicues at the end of the letters like this one. And so this is harder to read for someone visually than your sans serif font. So you want to make sure your fonts are built properly, and you don't want to have anything on your screen that people cannot pick up under 12 point. You don't want to have this little tiny, say, I don't know, 6-point font here. Of course, this is a picture, but you just don't want to have that. You also don't want to have too much information on your slide, and you certainly don't want it presented in a way that isn't, on one background. And you try to avoid having multiple colors underneath this, especially light and dark, which would make it hard for contrast. Now, the other issue is the readability, and that comes up in the accessibility checker, and you'll see that a lot of slides in this slide presentation do not have a slide title. So let me show you about how to fix that. On this slide, I think I'm on slide 17, so I'm going to click here, and it says slide titles are used for navigation and selection by those who are not able to view this slide, and therefore you want to make sure that you put a slide title. So the way you would do that from this slide is you would have to go and change the layout to title and content. And of course, like I said, this slide has way too much information for my liking, and it's just all jumbled up. Now, this was what the title is actually supposed to be, the text of the title. So I can just cut that from the box and paste it right here where the title is. Now, how would you know that this is actually a title? Let me show you. First of all, I want to resize this image and get it out of the way. And you see, it's kind of difficult when they're on top of each other. All right, let's look at the title, because that's very important for accessibility, especially for someone using a screen reader. And of course, I would obviously here have to deal with the contrast of that text there. It's just not good enough. Anyway, you're going to come over to the home ribbon and go to Arrange, and then click Selection Panel. And once you have the selection panel here, you're going to be able to see that when you click on these different things, I can actually delete this one. You'll see that there's 3 items, and the order that they're going to read for someone if they're using a screen reader is Picture 2, Title 1, and then the rectangle of text. And so the actual order should be Title should be moved to the bottom because the actual reading order is 1, 2, and 3. And the picture, which is not important, can be put at the top of the list because it will be read last. And since it's not significant, this probably should just have a decorative alt tag if you haven't put a tag on it yet. Now, the real problem that I had with this also for readability was that there was too much information on the slide here. And you see that the bullet points are a 24-point font, and that's good. But there's just so much information on this that you probably want to shorten this down and maybe put the extra information down here in the notes. Tables are one of the least accessible pieces of the PowerPoint experience for disabled users. If you want to insert a table into your PowerPoint slides, you can create a new slide, and then you're going to go up to Insert, and then click on the drop down under Table, and then choose how many rows and columns you want. You can do that by typing in numbers under Insert Table. You can draw a table with, or you can bring in a spreadsheet. So I'm just going to use the 3x3 here. Now it's formatted in the design of this particular slide series, and so the top row here is going to have white letters, and so you can see that that's not going to show up. It's not good contrast. And then if I type in numbers here, they're actually kind of small, so you might want to change the fonts here, but it's visible, and you can make it more accessible by changing the format of the shape of that row here to a darker shape like blue. And so it looks okay, but I suggest that you fiddle around with it until you get something more along the lines of what you want. And to improve the accessibility, you might want to change the font size and both the heading and the text within the content so that it's easier to read. And again, you can also change the font, whatever font is being used, so that you pick something like Arial Black, so it's nice and bold. Now, this table is not going to be accessible to a screen reader. It shows up as an image, so if you right click on it, you can type in an alt text. You can mark it as decorative, or you can write a description here where the notes would be placed. PowerPoint allows you to insert multimedia, and the multimedia that you insert can be inaccessible for some of your users, so beware. There are different ways to add multimedia to your presentation. One of those ways is animation and making your slides into some kind of animated sequence. And so you have the transitions, and you can use all these different types. You want to avoid having any kind of flashing sequence because it will upset people with epilepsy and other issues. You just don't want that in your presentations. You can also go to the Insert tab here and then come over, and you see that you can do a video or an audio. You can also do screen recording like I'm doing right now. And so when you insert a video, you can go online, or you can pull one off your PC. So I'm going to pull one off my PC right now. I'm going to go to my videos, and I'm going to go to this little segment called Boom. and it's just for like a couple seconds. And when I put that on the screen here, you see it has a play and a rewind and a forward, and then it also has the audio on and off, you know, how loud you want to make it. But it does not have closed captions. So when you go about doing things, you want to make sure that you're inserting something with closed captions. So I'm going to delete that and go back to my table slides so I can better show this again. I'm going to go to Insert, and this time I'm going to go to Video, Online Video, and then you would just basically type in a URL. So I've gone online and I have this YouTube video that I want to copy. I click the copy button, and then I go back to my PowerPoint, and then I paste, Control V, and then I insert that into the video, and there you go. So when I click on it to play, it'll play right here on the screen. And you notice that this one has closed captions. And so if I put this clip on here, but you notice that it's the captions are really tiny. So what you want to do is you want to make the presentation fill up the slide as much as possible. Let's look at it now. And so that's a much better presentation for people. They'll be able to see the captions and they'll be able to listen to it. And so what about people who are blind? Well, the only thing that you can do for those folks that would be additional is to add content in the notes that describes what's being visually displayed on the screen. And that should cover your multimedia. You can also add an alt tag like this one for PowerPoint, Animating Text and Objects, which was the title of the YouTube video. But the important thing to know is that audio and video files need to have some kind of text so that persons who are hard of hearing and deaf can also get the content. Thanks for watching Points of Access.